I was just really struggled with the idea of I wanted to work and be a mom, and you just were kind of just the way we were raised. It was kind of like, well, you don't get, it's one or the other.
Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast. Discover yourself, break out of mediocrity, and become the mom you've always aspired to be. Here's your host, Kirsten Tyrell.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I had to force myself to start recording because Alycia and I are chatting away and I'm like, we're skipping over all this great content that everybody could be listening to. This whole episode is going to be over before we hit record. So anyway, welcome Alycia Crowley to the podcast. I'm so excited. This is a really sweet friend I found on Periscope who I love now. She's rolling her eyes, but it's all true. I found you. I was really drawn to you when you did your Periscope. I've told you this about how hard it is to make friends as an adult. And I was like, I love her. She's being real on Periscope. And that's the best place to be real.
Yeah, I cried a little bit, which was slightly embarrassing. But I mean, it was great because when you're vulnerable like that, that's what people that's what they love. They want to see that.
To that. Absolutely. So tell everybody about your momness, I guess. I'm on my A game so far.
My momness. Well, I'm a new mom. I just had a little girl at the end of the summer last year, and I can't believe she's almost a year old. It's it's killing me.
I bet.
But yeah, so I'm a new mom, but it's fun. I'm happy to be in the club.
Yeah, we're glad to have you in the club. And you're not a new listener to the podcast, but you've binge listened, right? Are you caught up yet?
Yeah, I am. And I'm so excited because I really didn't start listening to podcasts until this year. And yours was one of the first ones I listened to. And I am
awesome.
Full on addicted to podcasts now and audiobooks.
Yes.
Because of podcast. Yeah, I just love the whole world of it. I can get so much done and listen. I'm all about,
I know.
Yeah.
I think this is just going to be a fun little chit chat episode because we have a lot to dish about. But
yeah,
I'm right there with you. That's why I started a podcast instead of a blog, because I love writing, but doing the podcast was like, oh my gosh, the audio medium makes so much sense because I'm busy. That's the only time I've had time to read in the last 6 years, and I've been able to consume all this information. Moms totally need to be on the podcasting train. So while it's still kind of new, like you, a lot of people, this might be their first podcast that they've ever listened to. It's so beneficial to being able to multitask.
It's been amazing. I watch a lot less trashy television, and I listen to the radio less, which, I mean, music is great too, but
it's on replay. It's always the same stuff.
I really like the, personal progress aspect of just being able to listen to things and read books and kind of in your spare time. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's really good. I was listening to Outwitting the Devil. It's one of my favorite ones I come back to anytime I start to hit a slump in life. And my kids are like, Mom, can we not listen to this? Can we listen to some songs? And I'm like, oh, fine. You guys are really killing my personal development going on right now.
Thank goodness Ella is obviously way too young to complain about that. So she just has to put up with what I'm listening to.
Which is nice for you for now.
Yeah.
So tell everybody about, first of all, you've been blogging for how long?
Oh my gosh, I've been blogging technically since 2008.
Wow. So you've been around a while. When blogging was just starting to become a business thing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how I fell into it. So I come from a really large family. We're really tight-knit, kind of all in each other's business. And I grew up in San Diego, and I moved to Utah for college. And my dad had a blog. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
And he was the best blogger, posted all the time, posted pictures. He was hilarious. And he started hounding me, telling me that I needed to start a blog because they all wanted to know what was going on in my life and post pictures. So I started one because my dad really encouraged me to. And I thought it was a really cool way to document and journal, And I blogged here and there throughout that first year. And then I met my husband, and I kind of instantly felt like I had something to blog about, really interesting. And that's when I started really blogging. And it's funny because this is before Pinterest days, believe it or not.
Back in the Wild West.
Right. Our kids are anyway. So blogs were the place to go to kind of search for wedding inspiration. So I'd recently gotten engaged, and that's how I kind of fell into this like whole world of blogging. It was like online magazines. And then all of a sudden through that, you kind of, there used to be blog rolls on the side of a blog. I don't know if you remember. And
that.
people would link who they liked. And it just kind of became this black hole that I fell into. And I started following people I didn't know and reading about their lives. And I saw how cute and pretty all these other people's blogs were. And I wanted mine to be cute and pretty. So I taught myself how to do HTML coding and all this stuff. Because back then you had to do it all by yourself. Mm-hmm. And so it actually really started out in a vain way. I guess I wanted a pretty blog, but it was really cool. It took up a lot of my time, but it was this kind of new skill that I was teaching myself.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, like my photography was getting better. And I just kind of found this whole new creative outlet that I kind of felt was missing. Like in high school, there's a lot of opportunities for you to kind of express yourself. You have to take a elective or play sports. And in college, I just found myself really like lacking that. And so it was awesome, the blogging world. And then, I wasn't from Utah originally, and I met my husband pretty quickly. And so I had to kind of like find friends in this place I'd never been, like I hadn't been living, and the whole blogging community just opened that up for me. And before I knew it, I was a blogger and working with companies, and it was really fun.
That's
and
awesome. So how many years into blogging? Because I remember those days of having the blog roll. I actually did blog back in those days. I remember blogging like when I met my husband, and like I think that was our family blog, is when we got married and we shared like our engagement photos, and then when our children were born. And I'm probably pretty sure that I stopped blogging, which is so sad because my blogger like memory was full, so I couldn't add any more photos. And I was like, I'll start. I
remember when that happened. Everyone was having to like save pictures other places.
Yes, it was so dumb, and that's what stopped me from blogging, which is so sad. Looking back, I had the coolest like family journal up until that point, and now it's all just like hit or miss, whatever you can find on Instagram and Facebook posts. But
such a shame.
I know.
Well, it really like rolled into a lot of different opportunities for me. So I went to school for teaching, actually. So I have a Bachelor of Science in Social Science and Teaching History. But when I graduated, my husband was going to law school. Long story short, I ended up getting an opportunity in marketing because of all my blogging.
Wow.
And it just opened up this whole new path for me, where I kind of realized that because I didn't have a degree in marketing, I should take advantage of this. And I've been able to, until recently when I had my daughter, I've been able to work in marketing for several different companies over the last like 3 or 4 years. So it's been really cool how just that little thing opened and turned into this larger opportunity.
That's
been
awesome.
fun.
I love it. And you stay so busy with that still, even. Like, I can't even fathom how you've had time for like quote, air quotes, real jobs working for companies, because your blog and like that social media influence that you have is it keeps you so busy. I follow you on Snapchat. Like, do you ever eat at home? Because I always see you eating at these fantastic restaurants.
Well, of course I only snap when I'm eating at really fantastic restaurants. No, I eat at home. For a while there, I was doing all of it. So I always maintained my blogging business, I guess you'd call it, and working in marketing at the same time. And even after I had my daughter, I started working at home from the company I was working with before. And it wasn't until February that I completely cut ties with that and 100% focused on my own stuff. And it's amazing because I think a lot of people are so scared to make that jump, but I'm realizing I should have done it forever ago, because I was able to make like just as much as I was making at work once I was able to put more time into it. And so it's crazy. And since then I've started another business. And so I'm doing more, right. But it's all for me, which is really, really cool. And yeah.
And that's how the entrepreneur journey has to start. Like I don't know, it starts very, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I feel like that resonates with me, because when my husband quit his job, looking back, we're like, was that kind of premature? Like, we have waited another like 6 months, but we were at the point where he was wasting 40 hours a week just to earn a paycheck. And there have been months, like a couple of months recently, where we've made more than what his salary ever was. And it's like, we couldn't have gotten to that point as quickly. It wouldn't, 6 months would have turned into a year or 2 years. I don't know how many years in your case you put it off since having the idea,
like,
but
ton.
Yeah. And that like that traction builds, you know, like at the time we only had a couple ideas. Now we have like 1,000 ideas, and that creative genius doesn't happen when you're still trying to maintain your obligations to a job.
Yeah, and I think it will always feel premature, right?
Yeah.
Because there's always the risk, and so you don't want to take it. But it's pretty cool when you do, and you work hard and you can see it happen.
I can tell you're a hard worker too. I really can. Like I said, you're always busy, but it's like a good busy. And you're very, like, still devoted to being a mom, too. Like, I was with you all the time.
Yep. And I think that's what's so cool about today. So I remember several years ago, I wrote this whole blog post about, I was just really struggled with the idea of I wanted to work and be a mom, you know, and we're kind of just the way we were raised. It was kind of like, well, you don't get, it's one or the other, you know. Or if you do work from home, you're still somehow, you know, taking away time from your baby, or I don't know, people, and that's kind of put on you, or like, at least it was for me. And so I wrote this whole blog post about how I wanted it all, and it had a lot of comments on it, a huge response. And it's really funny because we live in such a unique time where you actually can have it all. Yeah. And it's because of the internet and this amazing social media world, and it's crazy, but amazing. And there's a niche and there's a place for everyone. And what's really cool is you can make it your own. Like, you can create it 100% yourself. Just use your imagination. It's awesome. And so it's so funny. I never thought, you know, that's what the future would look like. Right. You know, if I knew this was a job when I was in high school, like, of course, that's like, I would have loved to do what I'm doing. Right. So it just blows my mind. And I can't wait to see what, like, you know, our future children have as opportunities. I know. Especially for women, because it just wasn't as easy to be able to work and be a mom at home.
Right. It's so true. It actually kind of hurts my brain a little bit, like a really hard math problem that you'd have like as a child or a teenager, when I get so deep into the world of the internet and how many different ways there are that people are making money online, are connecting with people. Like, I remember when networking used to sound like such a dirty word. Like, oh my gosh, networking sounds awful. Yeah. And now I'm like, I wouldn't know you if not for that quote networking, you know, like you're just connecting with other people and you're loving their stories and you're getting to know what they do. And it's fascinating. Exactly. Networking, that's such a funny way to put it, because I would say connecting is such a better term for it. So when I first started blogging and was really kind of getting into it and people were commenting on it that didn't know me, it was really funny because I'll never forget, my dad was like, okay, I love you and I know you, and that's why I read your blog. But he's like, no offense, I just have no idea why someone else who doesn't know you would want to read your blog. And I thought about it for a second, and I realized that the same reason my dad wants to read my blog are the same reasons why other people want to. And it's because when you're vulnerable and you open up and you just share your life, like, people do feel like they know you and they connect with you and they want to cheer for you and they want to be with you when things are hard. And it's kind of every human wants connection. They want to feel love and connection. And so that's that basic human need. I love the shared human experience and connection that can happen through social media. Yeah. And it can be a really powerful tool. And that's why I do it. You know, people ask me what I blog about. I blog about a little bit of everything, just like my life, things I'm interested in. I just share my thoughts. And my blog is actually called Crowley Party. And which it was originally Alicia's World, which is just, bad. But when I met my husband and we ended up when he proposed, he said that we're going to have so much fun after I said yes, and our little moment. And that was kind of my inspiration for when I changed my blog name once it became a family blog, was Crowley Party. And that's kind of been like my tagline with my blog, is that life should be a party and should be celebrated. And so that's kind of the whole idea of connecting and sharing. It's just like, I want to share and celebrate my life with others. And by doing so, hopefully encourage others to do the same. I love that. And it's so fun. It's such a fun world. And I wouldn't know you if it wasn't for it. And how cool is that? It is so cool. It blows my mind every single day. Like, when we were getting ready, I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, but when we were getting ready to move, I know I've probably talked about it on Periscope, from California back to Utah, And there were friends that I was like heartbroken to leave. But at the same time, I was like, but the people who I talk to the absolute most, I talk to on the internet. I talk to them on Periscope. I have my podcast. I connect with these people all the time. So it made me feel a little less lonely. And that's amazing that your life can transplant anywhere and you can still feel connected to people who are going through your same situation and your same life situation, you know, everything. The same stages in life. It's just awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah. It makes me wonder what, you know, this whole podcast is about marvelous moms. And it makes me really wonder, like, what moms did before when they were kind of trapped in their houses and like
cried all the time.
You know, I mean, yeah, they probably got out more and hung out with people now. But you know, it's just pretty cool that we have this, and it's fun that people are taking advantage of it and really making it their own. It's fun.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're putting this positive spin on it. And I don't want to like take this to a negative space, but
no,
like I feel like, don't you feel like that's something, because you've been blogging for so long, that you've had to evolve with? And that I know you wrote in your questionnaire to me about FOMO and how it's so hard because you distort reality with online reality. Yeah. And I know that's happened to me before. It's like you feel super close to these people, but then in real life, you're like, I don't even know you.
There is definitely, when I said it's a powerful tool, it can go either way, you know, and it's kind of like the perspective in which you're coming at it. And no one's positive 100% of the time. And that's probably been the biggest curveball with blogging is, you know, I was always that really confident girl. I was that really social girl. And at some point down the road, when I found myself doing social media literally 100% of the time, because I did it for work and I did it for myself for work. And then I did it for myself as in just, you know, enjoyment. And it can really take a toll on you if, you know, you're not in the right place with confidence and self-love and all that fun stuff that we all struggle with sometimes. And yeah, there is that side of it. I don't even know where to go with that. You can edit this part out.
No, I'm not going to.
It's hard. It's hard to explain. You know, and it's kind of like when I got vulnerable on that one Periscope and I got emotional. I think a lot of people would be surprised to see that someone like me like struggled with that, because I do feel like I have a lot of really great connections and friendships online. And I do think that's awesome. And I think it's important, but it's just as important to have that connection in real life. And I think that people put too much value on, you know, followers and what people are doing. And you need to remember reality and, you know, your neighbor and bringing someone cookies and hanging out. And so people would see me going to a ton of blogging events and, you know, see you all over social media, but it's all perception, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's still, and part of it is still work too for you. Like, there's probably nights when it's an event you're maybe excited about, but at the same time, you'd rather just stay home in your pajamas and not have to go out and be a social butterfly, because everybody feels that way sometimes. So it's
funny you mentioned that, because there was an event tonight that I was like, I'd rather talk to my girl and just hang out and do my podcast tonight with you.
I love it.
Yeah.
We're like virtually hanging out, which sometimes I wish I really could hang out with all these amazing friends that I've made on social media. Like, I mean, you guys get to, a lot of you guys are up in Northern Utah, you do get together, but for me, it's like, I want a party with all of these girls who I've been able to interview on the podcast, and that'd be awesome. There is a retreat that will be coming up soon.
Ooh, so I think you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, maybe by the time this airs, I will be advertising that. But I
mean, you know, to roll the negative back into a positive.
Yes.
That's one thing that's why I want to kind of emphasize the just celebrating your life and loving each other and love yourself. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but I'm really kind of concerned about the next generation, because we grew up without this. You know, our childhood, we didn't have this. And we're kind of the first generation to really, you know, have this.
Both.
And you know, I remember I got my first cell phone at 14 and like AIM messaging, and it kind of exploded from there. And the first time I got Facebook and MySpace and all this stuff and YouTube, and seeing how it affects me sometimes as an adult who's confident. I don't even want to imagine what it's going to be like for the 12-year-old who, you know, back in the day, I wouldn't have known that I wasn't invited to something because pictures weren't plastered all over of how I missed out, you know, or just online bullying. I mean, I've experienced some of that even with the blogging world. It's just, if we can try and make it as much, like if they can find happy places within it and find a way to make it something where they can just celebrate their life and not, I don't know, not get down, it's still going to happen. But
yeah, my husband talked about this once, how back in those days, you'd have a bad day at school, but you could come home and that was it. Like you didn't have to face it again to the next day. Now it's like you come home from school and all the drama happens. Like that's when you know all the stuff. And it's just, I mean, that right there's motivation. We're going to be the weird parents, but he says now our kids are not going to have smartphones until they're like old, you know, like graduating high school.
I know,
like,
I feel you. I laugh. Like my husband, he didn't have a cell phone until he was like 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Well, my first picture phone was when they first came out, and it was my graduation present. So
nice. The only reason why I had a phone as early as I did was because my dad worked for a cell phone company. Okay. So I was like one of the first, you know, to have a phone, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, I am a little concerned about, you know, that side of it for the younger generation. And yeah, you'll always, if you look for the good, you'll find it, you know, and so that's what I try to focus on in social media, while also, you know, being real and vulnerable. No one, you know, likes that. Like they want to feel like they can connect to you. And
yeah. Well,
that's what I like.
Yeah, that's what I like too. That's why we're talking right now, because you're open and vulnerable. And that's so important. So I think it's really interesting too, on that same note, I just have one last thought. When you're talking about what did moms used to do, I talked to my mom about this, and she was like, you just did your life. Like, you just raised your kids. You didn't know what was going on. You didn't care what people were doing. Like, even on hard days, like, I know that she struggled. I know she had a hard time, but they went to, like, their family, and they connected with people in their life. And I think
simpler times.
More of that. So much simpler. She looks at us now, she's like, I can't even imagine. Like, oh, it's so overwhelming how things have changed. But
yep.
I love that you're putting celebration and positivity out into the interwebs, because the more of that we can have, the better.
Well, if we're all going to hang out on the internet anyway,
right,
we may as well make it a party.
Like, exactly.
So that's what I try to do. But yeah, and you know, just the whole comparison trap and the things that can get you down. It's really funny because it's obviously a huge issue with women. I'll never forget when the quote, comparison is the thief of joy, was like all over Pinterest, all over Instagram. And that was a hard one for me, because I feel like comparison can actually be a really positive thing. You know, growing up, I would see someone that I really admired and qualities that they had, and, you know, compare myself to them, but in a like a positive way, where I'm like, okay, this is what I can do to achieve that. But unfortunately, you know, that can be abused, and women can look at it as like, oh, I don't have that, and I'm not as good, you know, and I sometimes feel like there's a lack of wanting to just share and celebrate each other. And I don't know, I really love the quote, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's the part of the internet that I like. Whereas like everyone can just celebrate each other and can give that off to everyone else. And
yeah. Well, it's that abundance mentality of like, just because you have success doesn't mean I can't. Or like you in the very beginning, you were talking about how, you know, there's something on the internet, there's something like, there's a niche for everyone, there's an opportunity, there's a space for everyone. Yeah. Just because like you're a blogger doesn't mean that there's no opportunities for anybody else to be a blogger anymore.
Exactly. And it's really hard, I think, for people, because they look at someone and they're like, oh, she's really successful. And they try to emulate that, you know?
Yes.
And the reality is if it's not 100% you and authentic, you're not going to be enjoying it, and people are going to be able to tell, and it's just not going to last, and you won't get satisfaction out of it. Before we started recording, we kind of talked about that a little bit, like doing things that you actually enjoy doing, you know?
Yeah.
And eventually, you know, you will be rewarded, whether or not that's monetary or just the way you feel about yourself. You know, for a long time, I didn't make money blogging. Yeah. But I loved it, and it was so much fun to do, and I loved the community, and I shared for years. And I remember when I first started reading blogs, seeing other bloggers and being like, oh my gosh, I just couldn't even imagine having that many followers or blah, blah, blah. And it's really crazy to look back, and I surpassed that like so many years ago. So even when you achieve it, it's not even something that you necessarily acknowledge, and like you'll never feel done in regards to that. And so when you try to achieve like something else that someone's doing in that kind of negative way, you're never gonna
And you never
find that positivity.
You need to appreciate where you are. Like, I talked to somebody today for another interview, and she's like, compare yourself to yourself, but don't compare yourself to others. And like seeing yourself grow. Don't you think, I actually interviewed somebody who has a podcast. This is a totally other interview too. And their podcast is about like, you know, feeling successful where you are, because you never feel like you've arrived or that you've achieved a ton. You're always looking forward to the next thing. Oh my gosh, I totally need to conquer that aspect of social media, or I need to take my business in that direction. Where if you stop and you look backwards, like with this podcast, and I'm like, holy cow, this started with a glimmer of an idea. And now look what's happened, and look at the daily emails I get from people who it's changing their life. You know, I'm not just tooting my own horn, but like this is the impact that things like that have. And you have to be proud of where you are and what you've created.
Yeah. And I think it's just in our nature, you know, I'm sure you're the same. When you're like a goal setter and a list maker, and it's just like next. Yep. And it's hard for people like us to sometimes stop and look and go, oh, actually, I have done all this, and kind of give yourself a pat on the back. I mean, it's important to do that. But it's also good to, you know, obviously set goals and want to keep on moving forward. But it just goes to show, you know, people think once they get to a certain place, they'll be happy or successful. And the reality is we're all going to be constantly growing and constantly trying to be better. And that's what life is about.
Yeah, and the secret is like being happy along the way. I think I looked up one time in church like the definition of success or something, and it was like success is typically by definition like the achievement of a big goal. But then it was saying in another definition, success is being happy no matter where you are in your goal. Because if you're, like you said, waiting to be happy, you're never going to be happy.
Yeah, and that's why
enjoy it.
It's all about, you know, well, not it's all about my blog, and kind of what I like to do is just share about being happy, and obviously when I'm sad too, but you know,
you're human, you bleed, you cry.
Yeah, that's you know, people relate to that as well, obviously, but you know, I remember writing about, if you go back to my blog back in the days, like, I mean, we were newly married, living in this like concrete little box of an apartment, and it flooded with like the toilet upstairs, so we're talking literal you know, water in my apartment.
We'll fill in the blanks, yep.
And trying to just like be positive about it, and like, you know, people love that kind of stuff, and that's the stuff I love. And
you found your people,
when life's crappy, you know, just
snappy, just kidding.
Yeah, having fun and sharing.
Can you imagine having Snapchat when that happened?
Oh my gosh, it would have been amazing. The things I would have caught, the things I would have done. But yeah, it's really funny because I think a lot of people might not think that they have like a tangible talent. But there's always something that you can share.
Yeah.
I'm someone who doesn't really have like a physical, like, you know, I was saying this to you earlier. I don't feel like, you know, I haven't had anything spectacular happen to me in my life. I haven't had anything tragic happen to me in my life. And I remember going to a blogging event, someone was speaking, and she kind of mentioned that unless you have something like that happen to you, like you can't really, you know, become a big blogger, a big whatever. And that just didn't really resonate with me, because it's like, you know, it's kind of the everyday mundane things that people really love, like at least on my blog. Yeah. And relating to that. And my talent, unfortunately, even though I can't play, my sister's a professional oboist, and all my siblings have these really kind of tangible talents. My parents were always like, well, you're just, you know, you're really social, and you know how to make people feel good about themselves. And that's a talent. And that was really hard for me to wrap my mind around until I got a little older. And now with blogging, it's like that's kind of what I'm doing, you know. I found my gift. There's the quote, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away.
I love that.
To me, social media has done that for me. And I think for all those other people who didn't think they had like a, you know, being nice and making friends isn't necessarily a talent, but it is, and it is a gift.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It totally is. I agree with you there. So I know that it is hard for a lot of people who don't have that, like, I can sing, I can dance, I can play piano. Yeah. But those talents that were always kind of like, whatever, who cares? I can talk to people. Now, look at you now. Like, is your your sister who plays oboe, does she make money from it?
Kind of.
Probably not as much money as you're making.
No, probably
being
not.
Awesome.
Brother. And I mean, you and your podcast.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know.
Yep.
There's something for us social girls, I guess.
True. Exactly. I'm getting paid to talk to people. That's the best. That's the best. I was talking about this with my husband too, and my mom, that my report cards always said, doing great, but really chatty, really talking. Like, we would have field days and you'd get a letter crossed off for every time we got in trouble. And I missed the field day because I was always talking. Like, that's a lot of letters, field day. And I had them all crossed off. And I'm still sad about that. I'm still really mad because I know one of the times I was not talking, but whatever. But
I was the same child.
Yeah. I'm like, look at how that's serving me. So I almost, when I've had these guests on who do homeschooling or unschooling, that appeals to me because I'm like, I don't want anybody telling my son, who's just as social as I am, that that's a flaw or something. I mean, I understand discipline and like respect, but honestly, like, that is my biggest trait right now, is that I'm chatty. If I wasn't chatty, you guys wouldn't be listening to this right now.
It can get a negative connotation being a chatterbox. But when, molded in the right way, it's awesome.
It's true. So tell everybody about your newest business venture, because you weren't busy enough before. So you started what?
Oh, yeah. So I have my blog and I do that. And then I was always doing stuff for other companies. I was always promoting things and trying things and testing things. And I love doing that. But my husband was like, Alycia, you could do this for yourself too, like you should do something. So he'd been encouraging me for a long time, but I was always working on top of my blog. So I was like, nah, I don't have time. And anyway, after Ella, I was just kind of inspired. So I started a company called Luna by Baby just a few months ago. So selling baby apparel and accessories, and using Ella as my model, making her earn her keep. I'm like, college tuition. No, I'm just kidding. And it's been really fun. I was getting so tired of spending like such expensive little kid stuff. They grow out of it so fast and it's so expensive. And I'm like, I know I can do this. And because I've just worked in this world long enough to know how. And I was like, I want to provide cute, like boutique style things for a good price. And so right now, our main thing is these rompers, little baby rompers for little girls. And they've been doing really well.
Good.
I know. They're fun.
I'm excited for that.
It's been fun to kind of start something on my own. And like I was saying earlier, now's the time, for anyone, but especially women and moms, it's so much more doable today than it ever was. And
if you have an itch to do it, like the next year's going to pass whether you do it or not, you might as well do it, because you never know when you're going to stumble upon the next thing that, people say like, oh, I should have been a blogger way back when blogging started. But if you don't start now on whatever that is, there's people who start in multi-level marketing companies that have been around for 15 years and they are 2 years in and they're just doing just as well. Like the only limits are the ones you put on yourself.
Amen. You just can't live like that. There have been a few times where like I have a YouTube channel and I haven't been as good with it as I'd like to be. And people really love video. And I'm like, oh man, I should have started like being really consistent with that years ago. Like there's no point now, all the YouTube stars were like 15 years old and now, but the reality of it is that they're actually my age now.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason why I can't start now.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Or why anyone can't start. I mean, what was Julia Child's like how old when she went to cooking school or something?
Exactly.
I love that comparison.
I know all those charts that show like very successful people who didn't start till like 40 or older. It's like, yes, I'm ahead of the game.
Yeah, Vera Wang. I remember that list. I love that kind of stuff because it just goes to show you that what's the point in just get started. Just do it. Who cares?
Those are people's biggest excuses for everything. I'm too young or I'm too old.
Yep,
These
I know
days you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I know girls who started blogging years after me, and they, surpassed me in 1 year. You just never know.
Yeah, it's true. You never know who needs your story either.
And if you're passionate about something, you have no idea how it's going to take off and how people are going to receive it. And
right. Amen.
Anyway.
So tell everybody what you're reading. I know your list was long, which is awesome because of Audible, right?
Yes, it's because of all these podcasts I listen to, and there's all these awesome recommendations.
We're coming full circle. I was just saying before I hit record that I did A Miracle Morning today, and you were saying you just finished that book. So how has that been going? Have you done it yet?
So here's my thing. I have an 11-month-old. So the waking up early, I love the idea of it. That book is amazing. who's it by?
Hal
Anyway.
Elrod.
Yeah, Miracle Morning by Hal. I love the idea. I'm totally going to implement it. I'm kind of trying to implement his little shorter version just because I'm in that like lack of sleep phase of life right now.
Yep.
But I just ate that book up. It was so good.
Right? And I forget how life-changing, when you start doing it, you'll be like, I guarantee you'll be like, I should have just started doing this even when I was sleep deprived.
Like we were just talking about. Why wait?
Yeah.
I've kind of done elements of that in the past, so I know how positive it can be.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when Ella was waking up really early, I would just stay up and get so much done.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So I do need to get back into doing it, and I do want to, but I just,
It seems like you're getting plenty done, though. Even you still are in that. You're not even a year. She's not even a year old. You still need to sleep when she sleeps on occasion. You know?
Yeah, because like right now we're just so busy. I'm renovating a house on top of all of this.
Oh my gosh!
And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna paint a kitchen cabinet, and I'm gonna go fulfill an order, and I'm gonna go write a blog post, and I'm gonna go take pictures. It's
a
little
life.
Intense.
What a cool life!
I mean,
that's amazing.
I complain sometimes, but I wouldn't have it any other way because what else would I be doing?
Yeah, working
sitting
on job.
Or sitting on the couch watching Real Housewives, which I mean is fun, but
yeah.
like I feel a little better about myself at the end of the day when I've done other things.
That's awesome.
The other book I just finished was The Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown. Holy life-changing. Yep. I texted everyone, emailed them, like, read this book.
Yes.
Just I've never been to a therapist. But I kind of felt like I went to one after I read that book.
Me too. I totally agree with you.
And I was like, I love her.
I've emailed her publicist to get her on the podcast. It's like my goal. Like that's my long-term goal for this podcast. Someday Brené Brown is going to be on this podcast. Like how Ellen got on the O Magazine cover. I'm going to have Brené Brown on the Marvelous Moms Club podcast.
There you go. I'm so excited. It's been said. It's going to happen.
It has to. I've stated it. And the universe must deliver.
Yes. Speaking of that, that's the other book I read is kind of about that. It's kind of got a bad word in the title, so I won't say it, but it's You're a Bad
Ace.
Yep. And it's How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero.
I've had that recommended before. I've heard it's really good.
Yeah. So I heard it recommended several times, so I decided to read it. I will say it was a little hard for me to get into, but once I got into it, it was awesome. And a huge part of her book is like positive thinking and affirmations, which, I think sometimes I'm like, oh, affirmations, that's a little weird. But after reading that book as well as The Miracle Morning, there's really something to it,
there is.
There
is. When I stopped doing them, good things stopped happening. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel more hopeful and believe in yourself that what you're capable of when you're willing to say it out loud, as uncomfortable and weird as it is.
I know. Well, that whole idea everyone talked about, The Secret. Do you remember that? And I remember being like, oh, what's The Secret? Like, I'm so excited. Like, this is amazing. And I remember looking it up and being like, that's The Secret? Like, duh.
Yeah.
Because I already know that. Like, it's not a secret. Positivity, when you just have that in front of your mind and that's the way you view your life, and everything will be better.
Yeah.
And you'll get more done. You'll accomplish the things you want. And honestly, it's just creating the habit of trying to look at life that way.
Oh my gosh. Seriously.
That's all it is. Everything is just a habit because I think some people are born just naturally maybe more positive thinking than others. But it's all just training yourself to look at life in that way. So habits.
You need to read Outwitting the Devil. The coolest part about this book, it's the book of all books for me. I actually can't enjoy books like the one you just talked about because I know that they're based on this book. Because
really? I'm going to write this down.
Okay.
Outwitting the Devil.
Yes. It was written in 1938 by Napoleon Hill, the same guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich.
That's another one on my list to read.
Yes. It wasn't published until 5 years ago.
What?
His wife didn't want him to publish it, or possibly the devil, because he knew it would ruin his trajectory for how he keeps people lame and drifting. And oh my gosh, it's just the foundation of basically The Secret. He talks about that outwitting the devil because there's really no gray area, and it's so cool in today's day and age too, where there's so much gray. If you're not doing something good, you're not doing anything at all. There's so much more to it. I could do a whole episode on this book.
I imagine. You probably should.
I really should. I talk about it a lot in our mindset makeover that we have going on right now, but oh my gosh, it's seriously the book I think it's amazing that it wasn't published until recently, but all the principles still apply. It's crazy.
Well, that's what truths are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're so forever.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to read that one next. And then I'm currently reading, see, look at this. I am someone who loved to read, but never had time to read, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you never have time, but you really actually do have time for the things you want to get done, right? So it's just an excuse, but Audible has made it so I've read 4 books in the last month.
Yes, I
don't think I read 4 books last year.
I know, I'm with you.
It's amazing. So yeah, I'm currently reading Carry On Warrior, The Power of Embracing Your Messy, Beautiful Life by Glennon Milton. It's a memoir.
I love it.
Do you know her?
No.
She's a blogger. And anyway, it's pretty good so far.
I'm just getting into it. List. I'm going to link to all of these in the show notes so you guys can check out all the books. Get, Think, and Grow. I mean, no, wait. I said the wrong book. Get Outwitting the Devil first.
Yes. Read that one first.
And then read The Miracle Morning.
I'm seriously going to go at it. Like, I'm going to start reading that one.
It is seriously life-changing. And it's, I could talk about it for hours and hours. It's just that good.
That's awesome.
You need a good kick in the pants, too. You skip right to the section where he has this conversation with the devil, and it's just like, what am I doing with my life? I'm a drifter. I'm lame. I'm one of the lame people on the earth who's doing nothing. Can you tell how fired up I get about this book?
Yeah, I mean, it means it's good.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so anyway, moving on from that, we haven't talked a ton about your mom life because I think you do a really good job of balancing it and, like, keeping it in the mix. I mean, doing another business because you have a baby, I think that's pretty much the ultimate goal. Like, if you can base a business around what you're already doing in your life and basing it around having a little baby girl, that's awesome. So tell us about your life as a mommy and what maybe like the hardest part, the revelation for you that was like, oh, this is so much like harder than I thought, or the sweetest thing. It doesn't even have to be hard. It can be the best thing.
You know, it's funny because I'm someone who's just always gravitated towards children. I come from a big family. And I babysat a ton. I was a nanny. So I'm like, I'm going to be an amazing mom. Like, this is just going to be a shoo-in. And I mean, I do think I'm an amazing mom, but I think the biggest thing for me was like, whoa, 24/7, you know, that was the shocker because, you know, before when I nannied, I went home. And when I had siblings, I wasn't babysitting, like I wasn't raising them, right? And so making sure that she has that 24/7 attention and care while still trying to, you know, take care of myself and run a business and have a social life. It's quite the adjustment. But I mean, it was a little rocky in the beginning, but I think I've just really found my footing with it. And it's because I'm able to stay at home. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to manage it the way I'd want to. So it's a blessing that I'm able to make money at home.
Yeah.
And that I have a husband that's like so supportive of me doing all this stuff. You know, we're in a situation where like I don't quote need to be doing it, but I need to be doing it. Yes. If that makes sense.
It's not for the money, it's for you. Yeah.
It's for my sanity. But I mean, the money doesn't hurt. Like, who doesn't want to like, you know, feel like they're gaining that side. You know, when you take any kind of time away from your family, you want to feel like you're giving back, you know, something else. And so I feel like I give back monetarily, but I also give back. I'm a happier mom. And I love the idea that someday she'll be able to look at me and be like, wow, like my mom did all this, and maybe inspire her to, you know,
do her own,
feel like you can do whatever you want too. Yeah. And you don't have to give it up. You can have it all. So it's really funny when I mentioned that blog post a few years ago, I didn't think that was possible. And I made it possible for myself. And it's fun.
Affirmation.
It happened. It happened. People told me there was like no way to make it happen. And it did. And I do think there's a season of life for everything. You know, there's times where you're going to focus more on others. And Ella she's always number one, obviously, right now. And I think the sweetest thing for me for life is just, it's just so much fun. Yeah. I love it. We have so much fun together. Me, her, and her dad, my husband. It's so much more fun than I ever thought it could be.
Yeah. As hard as it is, it's 10 times sweeter than you ever thought to, right?
Yeah. And
it's
I mean,
a good trade.
She's such a good baby. We're so lucky. I don't know. I don't know. I think we should just stop now. No, I'm just kidding. I want we want 1 million kids now. We're like, dang, why did we wait so long? Because we were married 6 years before we had her. And we were like, we should have got started earlier if we knew how fun this was. Like I want like 10. I don't know if that's possible anymore, but
sure it is. You could get some multiples in there.
Yeah. I guess if God wants me to physically have that many, he'll make it happen. But
totally
anyway.
will. I have no doubt.
I don't know if I answered your question. That was
you did.
kind of all over the place.
No, you absolutely did. I asked a lot at once, so you did a really good job.
No, yeah. It's fun. I love it. I love it.
You're in a really fun time too, where you get to focus on just one.
I know.
That as long as you can.
We are. She's getting too much attention.
That's okay. That's okay. She can always get more. It's totally fine. So tell me the best question of the podcast interview. What makes you a marvelous mom?
This is always such a fun question to listen to on your podcast. Mm-hmm. First off, we're all marvelous because we had these babies. Oh my goodness. I just think about being pregnant and it feels like it was yesterday. I can't believe it was a year ago.
Yep.
Ugh.
So much faster when they're out, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I made a goal to give birth unmedicated, and I did that.
Wow.
And I feel pretty marvelous about that. And I know that sounds bad because people don't like to hear that, but that was just another goal that anyway, I don't know why I started talking about that, but I was just thinking about
it empowered you.
Yeah. And not even, you don't have to have done that. Just, I think sometimes like growing a baby and giving birth it's just such a marvelous, miraculous thing that sometimes we just like that alone makes us all marvelous moms. Anyway, side tangent. You can cut that out. I feel bad. But kind of like what I was saying earlier, I've always connected with children, and I always wondered if that would translate well into when I was a mother. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what makes me a marvelous mom is that I just really enjoy spending time and playing with my daughter. Like, it's just like being childlike with her and having that joy. I think that's what makes me a marvelous mom, because no matter how tired I am or how busy I am, like, thankfully, I really feel like I know when to stop and like put the phone down or whatever, like whatever's distracting me at the time. And like, I can just get down on the floor and just be completely present with her and play with her. And like I said, we just have a lot of fun. And every parent obviously likes to see their child like happy and laugh, but me and my husband, we just live for that.
Yeah. I love
it's
it.
the best. Anyway,
well,
that was a long-winded answer.
That was a beautiful answer. I think you are a totally marvelous mom, and I'm excited to see what you do as your mom journey keeps going on too. As she gets older and you get to deal with like the toddler years and that finding that balance, it's going to be even more and more fun.
And having more kids, because my husband's already like, why don't we have another baby?
Well, yeah, why don't you? I mean, come on, it's been 11 months, 10 months.
I know. He was like 9 months. He's like, so. And I'm like, whoa.
Like, I have to do all the work, mister.
But yeah, we want to have kids we want them close together, and we want as many as we can have, basically.
That's awesome. Well, keep us posted. Maybe we'll be making an announcement at the time we air this episode.
Oh,
I don't know.
Maybe. Well, you never know. Stranger things have happened.
It's true. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for being on here, Alycia. It's been so fun to chat with you. We could chat for hours, and we will on Voxer and any other way that we possibly can.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You're way too fun to talk to. I think, I'm all over the place.
No, you're not.
Just chat all night. We probably will.
We probably will. All right, guys. That's where you guys get to stop listening, though. So thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. So, fun little tidbit of information, Alycia actually was pregnant when we recorded this episode. She just didn't know it yet. So, congratulations, Alycia. She's expecting a little baby boy. She just found out the gender a couple of days ago. So, let's celebrate a little bit with a coupon code to Luna by Baby. Head to lunabybaby.com and you guys are going to get 15% off your order by using code MOMS15. That's MOMS 15. Everybody needs some cute Luna by Baby stuff in their life, so go head over there right now and get 15% off your order to give Alycia a little bit of congratulations for her new baby on the way. Thanks for listening, guys, and have a marvelous day.